How to pair wine and food. Secrets to successful pairings. Hello, I'm Katie, the wine fairy, and this is the Sip Sense online wine school. You're here to find out about wine and food pairing. This wine, that food, what goes with what? It's a never-ending challenge that people are presented with. But before we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, I want to assure you of one thing. You should always drink what you like. If you like it, you should drink it. It's really that simple. Regardless of who tells you what's right and what's wrong, it's your palate and you are in control. And the beauty of wine, you're always right. That's why I love it. I love wine. I'm always right. Who could go wrong with that? Right, so first things first though. When I talk about the food and wine pairings, there are a couple of basics that are really going to help you on this journey. Now, if you think about the senses of taste, our own senses are very important. Touch, feel, smell, see, all of these things also contribute to the understanding of the pairing of food and wines. Well, how, you ask? Well, let's take a deeper look into this. If you imagine the five senses of taste, or the sensory evaluators: sweet, sour, bitter, salt, and umami. Now, these five basic sensory tastes really play a big role in the ultimate food and wine pairing guide, because all the foods that we eat and the things that we drink are actually a combination of these points of flavor. So what we need to look at, of course, is wine and food. It's no longer about white wine with white meats, red wines with red meats. That's a thing of the past. Essentially what it's really about is texture and weight. Let's take an example. I've got a beautiful side of white flaky fish, but we're going to cut it, fillet it, make sure there's no bones. Cook it three ways. First one, lightly grill, maybe a dash of lemon juice, touch of olive oil. Simple. The second piece, a creamy butter sauce, maybe some capers in there, really delicious, slightly richer character. The third piece, more of a Provençal, tomato, lots of herbs, olives, really get that character and unctuousness going on. Now, the fish is our main ingredient, but we've cooked it and added very different layerings of flavor. So the wine that we would have if we just had the plain piece of fish grilled with a little lemon is certainly not the same wine we should have with that Provençal tomato style, because you've got different pHs, different chemicals, different weights, and of course, different textures. And that's all going to play a role. Let's stick with this analogy. So what would we serve with that light piece of grilled fish with a dash of lemon? Perhaps a Pinot Grigio, a Sauvignon Blanc, a lovely, fresh, crisp, zesty wine that works with the balance and the weight. Something slightly richer, let's move towards a Chenin, an unwooded Chardonnay, or even something with a little more richness, one of the aromatic styles, a white blend, something from the Rhone. Beautiful. The weight, the texture, that creamy character is really going to pair perfectly with the weight of the dish. And then lastly, that Provençal tomato, slightly salty, slightly sweet, that real kind of umami character coming through there. What would we do? Well, you have options, of course. For me, I'd go with a fruity, juicy, maybe slightly chilled, red. I know, right? White, beautiful, flaky fish with a red wine. Who would have thought? But that's the beauty of food and wine and the pairings. Now, once you've done this at home, and you can, have fun with it. Get yourself the 5 different elements. I like to call it the 5 senses of taste. Get a bit of lemon, a couple of apples, slice them. Let them maybe sit a little in the air, because what happens? They go a little brown. Encourages the sweetness. A small pile of salt, some arugula or rocket leaves, as I like to call them, for the bitterness, and just a few drops of soy sauce for that lovely umami character. Taste a wine, get to know it, and you can do the 3-step tasting protocol to really understand the character and the weight of the wine. Then taste the lemon, then taste the wine again, and see how that changes on your palate. You do the same with all 5 of the senses, and you will be amazed at the difference that each one of those food characters, the effect that it has on the wine itself. You'll be convinced that if you hadn't poured that wine yourself, you'd think it was 5 different glasses of wine. But that's not all. It's not only those 5 senses that play a big role. It's also, you look at the fat and spice. Some of us like a little bit of spice to heat things up a bit. But fat, oh, yay, bit of butter. Fat is flavor, right? So you're going to get really richer characters, and you need to make sure that it's balanced out with the weight of the wine. And what happens with heat, what that's going to do to your wine is it's going to elevate the tannin structure. It's going to elevate the alcohol. So you really need to be careful on the balance there so as to not overpower or lose those beautiful fruit nuances on that juicy red. You see, food and wine pairing, it's a minefield, but there are some very basic tips and tricks for you to enjoy, but play with it and have some fun. It's the only way you learn, by tasting. Oops, I mean research. Cheers.